I'm going to ask a sensitive question right now. How many people in the audience have a very happy marriage, a happy partnership at home? Good. Let's be real. Be real. Yeah, no, and what makes a happy marriage, right? It's great communication, it's respect, it's honoring the other person's needs as much as your own, and I think that's what we're dealing with here. When we're talking about partnerships in produce, we're talking about relationships and respect. So I would like to use imitation as the greatest form of flattery and start off our panel just the way Ellen started off hers, for the benefit of the culinary students here or younger members of the audience who are thinking about career development. I'd love to start at the far end and work back towards me. So we'll start with Steve Solomon. Say who you are and how your career in produce and food service has developed over the years. Don't go back to the T-Rex stage, Steve. Start a little bit later in your progression. And I only tease people I know and love, so welcome, Steve, to the panel.
Yeah, you know, so my name's Steve Solomon. I'm the menu or the culinary strategist for the Mushroom Council. And the Mushroom Council was really my first move really into produce, right? So I've been in advertising and marketing for restaurant chains for most of my career. And then, you know, since about 2000 or so, when I started consulting and doing menu development, I got into that business, and the Mushroom Council was, I've probably been working with them for about 5 or 6 years. The only thing that I would say, when I started working with them, we were all in produce about show your colors. And of course, we're brown, so that didn't work, but we found a solution to that, which we'll talk about later, and that is you've heard about it already from Raffi and Amy, and that was blending mushrooms with meat, which was an idea that Jerry talked about earlier. So, in terms of protein being your best partner.
Peggy McCormick. My company is MMM Marketing, and we've been in business 25 years, and we've worked for the California Avocado Commission over 20 years of that. Also work with Dole Packaged Foods and used to work with National Mango Board, California Strawberry Commission, a few other produce companies along the way. And before that, I was in consumer packaged goods marketing, working for the Clorox Company, which does have food, Hidden Valley Ranch and Moore's and a lot of other varieties, and Conagra and Del Monte, and sounds like I hopped around a lot. And before that, actually, I really wanted to get into sports marketing and interviewed with the Chicago Bears. And I didn't tell them that I had family, because it's a family-run football team. So I came back from that interview, went through my mom's kitchen cabinet and go, guess I'm getting into food. And it's been wonderful. I wouldn't change it for the least, but I am a Chicago fan, so got to throw this in. Go Cubs, go. Our year.
Joe Loiacano with Wendy's, born and raised in the produce business, 3rd generation, retail, food service, distribution, wholesale, load, drove, pretty much all of it. Can't think of doing anything else. It's a lot of fun.
Steve Kenfield, HMC Farms. I've been in the produce business for 40 years. In the 70s, I worked for the other Church brothers at a company called Bruce Church, which is today, or morphed itself into Fresh Express. Involved in pre-cut lettuce in the late 70s, selling McDonald's, Wendy's, Marriott. This was before there was retail salad. The sales call in Seattle with a progressive broadline distributor turned into an interview that I didn't know about. At the time, I thought that broadliners were just coming into the business, and so my wife and I and my 6-month-old son packed up, moved from Salinas to Seattle, and I went to work for a progressive broadline distributor. Ran the produce department, and then became a general sales manager. So I knew what it was like to try to run produce for a broadline distributor. I made the mistake of making an article, or commented an article, that broadline distribution is kind of like doing surgery with boxing gloves, because at the time it was really difficult to gain that skill. Lots changed since then. And then from there, in that, I also learned how difficult training is. to train the sales force who's got 10,000, line items is a nightmare in produce. From there, I returned back to California, got involved in the table grape industry, and I've been doing that for the last 20 years, bringing that food service focus to HMC Farms. We have a product called Lunch Bunch Grapes. We're now doing stem grapes. So, like Joe, I can't imagine being in any other business.
I'm Rovin Fisher. I am with P.F. Chang's in Scottsdale. I've been in the produce, food forever. I was in sales, and then I thought I went to the other side where people had to be nice to me. So, but it's a great industry. That's pretty much it. Mm-hmm.
I'm Rich Dackman. Grew up like Joe in my father's produce business. We sold it and started a business in a broadline company in actually Denver. It was brand new. It was early 80s, very few broadliners. We turned out to be pretty successful, and we turned out to be one of the first acquisitions of Kraft Foodservice at the time. And after about 2 years, Kraft asked if I'd move to Chicago to be the national produce director for their 50 operating companies, which I did for about 3 or 4 years. That company ultimately evolved into Alliance and then US Foods today, but I left the corporate environment and said I'd never go back, and went to work for Fresh Point, running their operating companies around the country. And I was fortunate enough to run 4 companies and also our buying office in Salinas, and then Sysco bought us. And I ended up back in a corporate office 16 years ago, and I haven't been out since. But I agree with everyone else. Great experience, and still haven't found a day where I woke up where I'm not excited to go to work. So that's, I think we should all, I hope everybody could be in a position like that. It's a lot of fun.
Hi, my name is Steve Church, and I'm the CEO of Church Brothers. And I actually, like everybody else, grew up in the produce business. As a kid, I started out working on the lettuce fields, loading lettuce. I did have my work permit, so I was legal. I always say that I'm a third-generation farmer who's never been on a tractor, and I grew up basically in the sales and marketing part of the business. I always say my brother Tom, he was the kind of the architect of the food service business in the Salinas Valley, of getting all the trucks together and having delivered sales and all that. But currently, as I said, I'm CEO and part owner of Church Brothers and True Leaf.
All right, so now you see the folks that we have in front of us. Hopefully, those of you on the student side have seen how, a little glimpse of how careers develop, but having a passion for produce has big impact when you wake up in the morning and you're excited about what you're going to do each and every day. So we're talking about successful partnerships, and I asked everybody on the panel to send me some feedback via email, and a few folks in the room will probably guess pretty quickly who had the fastest, strongest reaction to what's important when you're talking about supply chain and keeping everyone involved. Rich, would you share some of your insights on the importance of communication in supply chain?
The interesting thing about this panel is it's a great example in a lot of cases. So where I see the importance of it is there's different segments of the business, obviously. We have people growing product, we have people distributing product, and we have people buying the product and ultimately consumers. And where I see things getting out of whack is when any one of those segments choose to go out on their own and try to fit a program into exactly what is good for them without taking all partners into consideration and having true transparency. And so we've had some situations here, for instance, P.F. Chang's were a distributor of theirs, and they came to us and said, we'd like a contractual program on some broccoli products or something like that. So, you know, I went to Steve and his company and I said, here's what we're looking for, but we want transparency so that we can take advantage of what we're doing. How does it fit for you? And then how does it fit for you? And there was transparency between all parties so that we were able to make sure that we were working most efficiently for all. Done the same thing with Steve on some programs with his new Great program where, you know, we had a customer that needed that. We made sure that Steve was talking to the customer. And so, and there's other examples up here. So my biggest concern, again, including ourselves, is that we take all segments into consideration. And if you are a young chef looking to get into the restaurant business, I'm sure you have your own idea of what you want and how you want it to go. But I would just say that you have to understand all the facets of the supply chain and make sure that you're not causing disruption for anyone. I often say, I could come into your restaurant and I could ask you to make anything because you have a kitchen. You might not have the ingredients for it, it might not be on your menu, but you could figure it out. But if you had to make one item that was different than what you're normally used to making, it wouldn't be very efficient. And that's kind of what you're asking distributors or growers to do when you don't understand their needs. So that's kind of the point I was making.
So Robin and Steve, in this relationship with the broccoli, how important was the transparency to you, and how far did you go with transparency?
Was that to me?
For both you and Steve.
It was very important because we had some program prior to that going with Fresh Point that was not we didn't know where our costs were. We didn't, from freight to raw product. So it was really important, and that was part of the RFP that we went through, that we made it clear that we needed everything from the grower, the shipping, freight, and there were some that distributors or companies that didn't give us that, and so we didn't go forward with them.
You know, for us, you have to understand the spec of what the customer wants, and then, you know, working with Rich on the situation. You know, when I first read the title of this talk was Matches Made in Heaven, so I looked into the Googled heaven, and it's where saints and angels live. And I said, I don't know if that's good for the produce business. But, you know, it's, you got to work together with everybody. I mean, the transparency is unbelievable. If you don't have that, I mean, it's the trust and relationships that you're building.
So you can't do transparency without trust.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, which I think is a really important point. Peggy, let's go down to you. You've had a lot of experience of moving avocados into restaurants, which creates a lot of opportunities, well, essential partnerships that you need to make that happen. Tell us about the work you've done in avocados to increase demand in the marketplace.
Primarily, we've worked with them, as I said, over 20 years. And when I first started, the chain program is a big part of it. And I would just be happy if anybody would talk to me. And then we just started fine-tuning it, and we work mostly with the culinary and the marketing people, because as I hate the term commodity board, but as a produce board, we don't really take title and sell or quote price. And so our goal was to work with the chains to get avocado on the menu if it wasn't already on the menu, or if it was on the menu, to increase the ways they use it. So the more ways they use it, utilization is important for the throughput through the chain. And then we would work with marketing during our season, which for California avocados is March through August, with peak being May, June, July, to do limited time offers to really boost volume through. And Amy and I were talking, I mean, this past year of 2016, we did 26 promotions with various chains with an average increase in volume for the limited time offers of, to be precise, 25.77%. And we used Data Essential. We actually started working with Maeve when she was there. And new avocado items this last year in 2015 were 244 new menu items using avocado, and basically a 442% increase and limited time offers over the last 10 years. So when I started, we were 400 million pounds of a 500 million pound category, and now we're in the range of 300 to 400 million pounds of a 2.5 billion to 3 billion pound category. So you think avocados are ubiquitous, there is still room for growth.
So you made the point early in your remarks, Peggy, about your partners in this is getting to culinary to do ideation, new concept development, and then marketing to get it promoted out there. Any other partners that you want to call out in this process?
Actually, many of the people on this panel and many of the people in the room here know Jan DeLizer. And Jan had us institute a program, which I hated because it was more paperwork, but it really has turned out to be beneficial, and it goes back to what Rich said, is we now have a promotion brief where the chain signs off on what they're going to do, the California Avocado Commission signs off, and we have now included that loop of the distributor or the avocado handler signs off. So it now goes all the way through, because before that we were like, yeah, we hope they're buying California avocados, but we had no guarantee or way of showing it.
Trust
and
but
that
verify.
really has helped, again, the transparency, the fluidity through the chain. We now know how the avocados are going to market. And in food service, it's, in my opinion, not as clear as retail, where they buy from a handler and it goes into the grocery store. There are many different go-to-market channels and how it works, and you need to know all of those complications. They may contract with a handler, but in many cases it may go through a Marcon or ProAct and through a distributor, and make sure everybody's on the same page, and that's really helped.
Great. Steve, let's go down to you and talk about our long-term partnership. So a little backstory here. Some of you may have heard me talk about this before, but since 2010, the Culinary Institute of America has run a membership-based initiative called the Healthy Menus R&D Collaborative. And the Mushroom Council was the organization that stepped up with this concept idea, refined it with leadership from the college. And even though I left the college a few years ago, I've continued on as a consultant to manage that initiative. We've got some members in the room, including Rafi Taharian. And, you know, Steve, you guys wanted to see that blend concept moved forward. How important was HMC, Healthy Menus R&D Collaborative, as a part of that partnership to have success in the marketplace? Different agency. Yeah.
Yeah, and so let me talk about that a little bit, because as Peggy said, you know, especially for the students here, we are the board, so we don't sell, we don't grow anything, we don't sell anything, we just build demand, right? And demand for us is really all about education, promotion, marketing, and then research. So that's really what the board's role in all of this does, as opposed to working, even though we could and do work with distributors and whatever else, but our grower packer growers are the ones who specifically do that. So what we did was we really had that. In fact, the vision for Healthy Menus Collaborative was really not about the blended burger. In fact, that came out of that. But what we wanted to do was we wanted to get some people together who really were looking at, and I think this came up this morning, and Rafi answered that, about the culinary schools and their focus on produce, or the lack of focus on produce. You know, what we wanted to do was get some chains together and some food service management companies and talk about best practices around more produce on the menu, less sodium, strategic calorie design, better carbohydrates. And from that, so what we did was we did convene that through CIA and through Amy's help. And one of the first things that they did was start to take a look at mushrooms. Yes, we were the founding sponsor of that, but we weren't expected, you know, that we were going to develop new products around mushrooms. In fact, what happened, and it was a lot of people that were there, that started to look at the umami of mushrooms and the umami of beef and said, well, you know, one way to get more produce would be to, what would happen if we started to mix these things? We went through a bunch of iterations and finally came up with an idea, thanks to the Culinary Institute and the Healthy Menus Collaborative, to, you know, that you could blend finely chopped mushrooms into burgers and, you know, have even a better burger experience while still reducing calories by about 30 or 40%, less fat, less sodium. So everything that we wanted to do, and then get more produce on the menu, but do it in a way that, wasn't, you saw Jerry's beautiful pictures. Well, our beautiful pictures are burgers, but when you figure that there are 30 or 40% mushrooms blended into that, and kids don't know, students don't know, people who order at chains where there is this don't know. That's sort of a bad side of this, but they see a burger and they eat a burger, and like I said, it's a great burger experience. But we know that if we were to take every burger that's served in food service in this country and blend it with mushrooms, we would save 12 trillion calories a year. And I won't even go into the sustainability standpoint and the gallons of water and the droughts that, that might happen. But 12 trillion calories, I think, is something like every person in this country fasting for 7 days. So, if you think we can't make a difference through produce, we can. And that's the way we did it with a partnership through Healthy Menus Collaborative and the Culinary Institute.
Just to round that out, I mean, the partners include the college as the, creating a foundation for it, the Mushroom Council, and many other supporters providing the funding for it, the members who show up and participate, UC Davis and their research team in the sensory science department. So, a lot of partners involved there and a lot of, respect and relationships to be nurtured. So I want to start first with Joe on this next question. What about the current process of new produce item introductions needs to be refined or improved to have impact on moving more produce through food service?
Well, everything starts through R&D. They come up with the product, they come up with an idea, they come up with the what ifs. Then they put it into a functional form of like how they want to deliver it to the consumer. Then when they figure that out, they break it down and bring it to us, the purchasing side. And then we say, sure, we can do that. And then you look at the ingredients, and then you have to figure out where you're going to buy it from, how long is it going to take to get the fields, the product, the harvesting, everything inspected. From a QA standpoint, that's just an area you don't interfere with. Then you got to look at the grow side. You got to talk to the grower. Hi, Steve. And you got to say, how long will it take to have this stuff in the ground, ready to go, based on our specifications? After he's done laughing, and when I tell him what I'd like to pay for it, that saints and angels thing doesn't even come close to that conversation. Then we go back with a realistic expectation of what we think it'll take to get it to market. We've done promotions in less than a year. And some have taken as long as 3. You have to have a dedication to the product, a desire to promote it, to bring it to the industry, and to prove that we can do it. So, yes, blackberries took 3 years. Stuff like that does happen, but if you want to promote it, it takes a significant amount of time. The first strawberry blueberry salad, we worked on it for 2 years. So nothing is done quickly. Everything has to be validated, verified. Everything has to be done from a supply standpoint, specifications, quality assurance, everything. Nothing happens quickly. So the long-term relationship and partners, really important. And if he can grow it, then I might need somebody like Rich to make sure I can get all of my distribution facilities with multiple deliveries and keep them babysat and watched and fulfilled with product. You know, it's a long, deep project.
Robin, what are your insights on refining the process for new produce item introductions in your operation?
We have ideations. We have growers, shippers that will come in and do ideation with the chefs. And then we then go to the grower and can you get it in? We don't take as long as Joe.
It's a little throwdown, huh?
Got a couple more restaurants, all right?
But no, I would like to take as long as Joe, but we move pretty quickly at PF Chang's and the payway side as well. So it's just collaboration and making sure that it's in the right, that the chefs understand it's in the right. They want to promote it when it's in season. We tend to want to grow things that are not in season. So that's really, I think it's just a collaboration between our team and supply chain and making sure that, of course, quality assurance is is a huge part of our company as well.
Okay. Steve, you sent me a very thoughtful email about some potential opportunities for distributors to make the process of new produce item introduction a little easier for the sales reps. Can you talk about that and kind of, reframe the opportunity?
Yeah, well, I think new product development for operations like Wendy's or PF Chang's or large chain restaurants, is a very detailed, very specific, very structured process. I think the challenge comes in is how do we get new products to the rest of the marketplace? And I think that that's something that is really, really difficult. From my experience, having, I was a sales force of 70 people, full-line reps, to try to get their attention and their understanding. They're trying to make sure they don't lose the customer. They're battling the guy with the pickup truck. To get them to focus on selling a new item is almost an unrealistic expectation. And one of the things that I think that there's an opportunity, and Sysco, Proac, other companies are moving in that direction, is the conversation between the operator and the sales rep. I think a lot of times is, how do I get better at something? How do I get better at a kid's meal? And so I think there may be opportunities to arm the salespeople with information based on application. Because I know in our business, we take a look at where would grapes improve the offer to the consumer, and then how do we put them in a form to make that easier. So our focus is application. And so I just think there's something there. But it's, there's massive amounts of data that can be manipulated and directed to really target new product introductions to the rest of the industry that's not at the level of sophistication like these two are.
So you're talking about a solution or an option where one of your partners has to become IT, because this is database-driven decision-making, so that a salesperson can search by a keyword for a customer solution versus a product category.
I think the opportunities for analytics in distribution side of the business is, it'll change how we get product to market within 5 years, I think. And it'll be a lot more efficient.
Rich, what are your thoughts on this idea?
Well, a couple things. Just backtracking just a bit, I agree with Steve in the sense that we are dealing with two very large restaurant chains up here, and they have a lot of expertise and so forth. When it comes to partnerships with individual accounts, individual independently owned restaurants, and even to a degree some large chains, the culinary team is not always completely hooked up with the supply chain team. And I think it's critical, and Rovin mentioned it, that seasonality plays a part. We've had people come to us and say we want products at a given time of year when they're very expensive, or they're not at peak season, or it's not exactly the time to do it. And that's where collaboration comes in. I think we all have to use each other's expertise to understand when we should be promoting product and when we should be putting product on the menu. Right now in the restaurant industry, the innovative process is becoming really, really popular. Everybody's looking for the next new item. I think we were stagnant for a long time, and whether you think it's going to go away or not, kale played a really big part, because I grew up with kale being on the salad bar, and then suddenly somebody made it into this product that made a lot of kale growers really, really happy. And the fact is people began to realize that, hey, we can actually do some new produce products out there. And so I think everybody's on the chase right now. And in our company, we have a very specific innovative strategy where we've learned if we introduce a new type of item that some of our suppliers offer to us, that we have to educate our sales force really well on what this product is and how it can help our customers. And a lot of sampling. We have to do a lot of sampling, and these things don't happen overnight. But chefs right now really are everybody's looking for the next new item. I mean, is it kohlrabi? Is it, I've heard a lot about Jerusalem artichokes and things like that out there right now. What's the next new item? And you want to be on the cusp. So I agree with all that. Again, it just needs to be collaborated between all parties so that we understand we're doing something that makes sense for the restaurant, and the restaurant, the operator's not asking us to do something that just doesn't make sense, because we'll pretty much say yes to it. If somebody pays us for it, we'll say yes to anything for the most part. But a lot of times it's bound for failure if it's not done properly with all parties involved.
Sure. Joe, you have a follow-up comment?
Yeah, well, to both their points, they educate the sales force, which is really important because they're calling on the guy who's going to make the decision at the restaurant. For us, we want to educate our R&D and our chefs. I mean, these guys are like masters. They have the palate to put the flavors together, but they've never been to a field and seen the grow process, the harvest process, the whole bit. So for us, we want them fully educated. We want them to know as much as possible about any products that they're looking at. So it's as vitally important to have the salesman educated, but the end user's got to know what's going on too, or else they're not going to be able to put them both together.
So Steve, Rich made the comment about, growers chasing the next opportunity to present something new to the industry. How do you guys go through the innovation process? Do you find something new and you grow a small amount and present it to somebody, or do you wait for somebody to come to you, or do you do both?
We do both. And sometimes a lot of things don't work. We actually introduced a red spinach a few years ago, and I said it was a marketing genius and kind of a financial disaster. And one of the reasons it was so hard to grow, there were certain times of the year that the stems were woody, and it wasn't very good. So both. I mean, so that's an example that didn't work. Okay. Another example is we have a Tuscan spring mix, which is a hardier spring mix that we basically came to the distributors and said, this is something that we believe that's going to improve the spring mix. And so, we collaborated with them, and it's worked. But both ways, I wish the red spinach did work because it brought color to the plate.
Are there any chefs in the room who wish the red spinach were available? God, nobody's excited about red spinach?
Couple
There's
hands.
two of them over there.
Okay, all right. Good. Steve?
Yeah, so I wanted to say something, and it was also a follow-up question to that too. And again, we're also part of the produce business. I think there's a lot of trying to figure out what the next trend is and what the next new item will be on your menu, but there's a lot to say about reinventing yourself. Right? Everybody, and probably everybody that's in the growing business and the produce business has a great, has the potential to have a great product, right? At one time, avocado, you'd only think of avocado as guacamole, right? And that is just so not true anymore. It's guacamole and so much more. Mushrooms the exact same way. So I think if you think about reinventing yourself, if you think about what's going on in terms of the consumer mindset and how are you going to address what their needs are, number one, and then we do the very best job that we can from a growing community in delivering the product that has the best taste, just like the first panel said, the best taste, the best quality, and whatever else especially for food service, where people really, thrive. The whole business of food service is around flavor and taste. So,
For California Avocado Commission, we sell the avocado whole. We don't process it in any way. So our innovation really is in culinary menu development. and education. And in that regard, as Steve said, over 60% of the uses now for avocado are non-guacamole. And that's where really the growth has been expanded. And in the area of education, we have a culinary chef we use. Many of the people may know him. Dave Woolley used to be the corporate chef for Red Robin. And that really has helped us go into the chains because he knows the back of the house and he thoroughly looks at what equipment they already have. So we're not going to recommend fried avocado wedges if they don't have fryers. And that helps as far as developing items. And then education-wise, we do an avocado tour in August prior to an event. When we first started doing it, we got 3 people to go, and last year we had 21 and had to like cut it off because it gets to the point it's too big. But the education component, where the product comes from, how it's grown. I mean, most people don't know avocados on a tree even. You know, it's very important to be hands-on and not just a video.
So let's go back to that. And Joe, you kind of started this discussion thread of the importance of education all along the supply chain with all of your partners. Who are your education partners now, and who do you wish for?
Guys like me are gone. The last of this generation where we're coming through. I'm getting, the guy that works for me now is got a bachelor's in finance, a master's in finance, was in commodity metals, and became a produce guy. He's having the most fun he's ever had in his life, but now I have to educate him. So I have to go to my partners. I have Sysco, I have Church Brothers. You know, we do business with people for a long time. And we're vested in their business and they're vested in our business. So when I turn over somebody to them, I'm not going to go out and walk the fields with them. They have to learn. They have to learn how to step in between a row and when not to step in between a row. Trust me, I've lost shoes before. No one was out there going, hey, yeah, deck shoes aren't really good this time of the year, especially in a celery field, just saying. And those are things, believe it or not, that they need to learn. They need to learn about going through coolers and sheds and the tubes and everything that's going to go along with it. Yeah, we deliver some really great product. Steve said it was a symphony. It is. If each section isn't in tune and following the music, hey, we're in trouble. And this is a very finite type product that is specific to the point where we have specifications, we have requirements, and they do everything. The order's got to come in, the trucks have to be there. It comes out, it's cooled, it sits in the cooler the appropriate amount of time before it's loaded on a truck. You can't pull a guy out of Penn State and say, hey, this is what we're going to teach you. And he's going to look at you like, huh? Really? What? I can do a spreadsheet for you. Okay, well, this is big picture. You got to learn all of this, and eventually it's going to get back to that spreadsheet. But to get there, you got to get an education. I've got 35, 40 years invested into it, and I have to do this in maybe 1 or 2 years at most.
So getting out to the fields and having that experience with the grower, I think, is incredibly powerful, but it's time consuming. There are expenses involved. Somebody's got to support that cost. What other education models are out there that are valuable in terms of enhancing the knowledge of the people that you're working with?
You know, for us, I'm on the board of the LGMA Leafy Greens Marketing Agreement, and every year they invite both food service and retail buyers and food safety people to come out. And the purpose is to have them walk the fields like Joe talked about. And since when the spinach crisis hit in 2006, the education of what we're doing just to promote and give the buyers and the food safety people confidence that we're producing a healthy product.
So here's what I would say. Everybody sitting in this room has a portion of the business that you represent, and the complexities that you have to go through to do what you do in your own mind are extraordinary. And when I'm trying to bring everything back to collaboration and sharing, which is why we're here. And so we have to take the time to understand each other's business, because once you do, you realize the extraordinary challenges that each supply chain has to go through. Last week I was in Florida and I got the chance to go behind the scenes at Disney and go into some of their kitchens. And I was in awe of the small world that they were working, no pun intended, but the small world that they were working in, and the amount of product that they had to produce. And I was just in awe of the operations that they had. And here I am thinking, contracting their produce, bringing it to them, this simple process, and why they need certain products processed in a certain way to make it more efficient. So whether it's walking a field or going in a kitchen or being in a warehouse where we have a distribution center that has 10,000 different items that has to load 80 full trailer trucks in 7 hours and try to get not one thing wrong in how to put it all together. I think if we all recognize each other's business and take the time, one way or another, to educate yourselves on what's going on, you'll have a lot more respect for the supply chain, and I don't think you can be as good as you can be at what you do unless you understand in a very broad sense the complexities of the complete supply chain. So I encourage everybody to spend time one way or another in every facet that you possibly can.
Amy, I'd just like to echo that, because where innovation comes from is the identification of opportunity. And you can't see that unless you actually understand, what the operator is going through, or what the logistics patterns of Sysco look like, or package size, velocity. I mean, so unless you can get in and really understand the full breadth of the supply chain and the nuances and the complexities of it, our success rate at innovation is going to stay pretty low. But when you get in and you understand it, the innovation gets pretty easy because you see where the value is.
For the culinary students in the room, we're talking about innovation and the next new thing, but it's not always something just mind-blowingly, amazingly new. In Rich's first email to me, he was talking about some of the partnerships that he knows of, and one of them, Steve, it relates to you with Kroger needing a stemless grape. And that was innovation and getting that destemmed grape into the Kroger operation.
Well, I think Kroger was talking with Sysco about taking on their salad program. They're looking at labor, they're looking at constraints from some business that we had created before for another large food service chain. Rich said, hey, why are you doing that? Why don't you just go over and grab that? So it really wasn't something new. It was application of something that had been created to solve these constraints. So you're right. Oftentimes it isn't something breathtakingly new. It's just, hey, this may work better than that.
And it circles back to communication, having some knowledge about what's available, and then some communication along the supply chain. Okay, I want to go to Steve, Peggy, Joe, and Robin and talk about successful chain restaurant promotions that drive increased produce purchases and consumption. What defines a successful chain restaurant promotion from both your points of view, or all four of your points of view? Who would like to go first?
I'll start.
Peggy, first word.
We initially started, as I mentioned, working with Culinary and getting it on the menu if they haven't had avocado on the menu. And last year, we had 3 to 5 chains add avocado for the first time. And actually, Shane's out sitting in the room. And one of the chains that added it was the Egg and I, which First Watch bought. And they, get it on the menu. And then we did a limited time offer to get the movement going. And part of that was we went in and did a culinary presentation, taking a look at their menu and how they could add it. And we've done the same with other chains in the room. And sometimes it works. I mean, it took us 7 years to get avocado on the menu at Panera. And you would think that would be easy with the sandwiches and salads. But Dan Kish, who's the head culinary person there, said, I had to fix my lettuce and tomato program first. And that was his priority. But we got Milt Voss, who was his QA person out in a grove, and avocado tours, and you just kind of keep plugging away. And sometimes it's very successful, and sometimes you hit some roadblocks and you figure out where to go around them and how to resolve the issue.
So a little patience and perseverance goes long
Yep.
ways in some of these relationship building efforts. Steve? No, you want to go to Joe first?
We do LTOs. We do some promotions every now and then. We introduced fresh jalapenos on a spicy chicken sandwich. We were projecting to use 2 million pounds in about 12 weeks. We use 5 million pounds. Sometimes you get the numbers, sometimes you don't. At that point, then you're calling your best friend, Rich. Hi, Rich. Hey, guess what I need? Yeah. So, understanding his business, he understands my business, we understand Steve's business. What we don't understand is what the consumer is actually, what they really want, and what we think they want. We can test product, and we can say, well, we're going to sell 200 sandwiches a week, and then marketing comes back, hey, you know what? We're going to put those on fries, and we think you're going to increase 30%. Well, it was really 300%, but at least they gave us a heads up. Oh, by the way, 2 weeks before they rolled the program. So that does happen, but you have to be flexible, and you have to be willing to make the calls. Rich, Steve, it doesn't matter. If you're calling them, they understand the need. They understand. The reason they're getting the call is because they can deliver. And that's what it's about. It's the personal relationship. It's knowing their business, them knowing my business. And unfortunately, I don't know my business all the time because we don't. We ran taco salad. We took it off the menu because it was an underperforming salad. We bring it back after 5 years. We thought we'd sell 70. Who knew we were going to do 400% above that? Well, now all of a sudden Steve goes, hey, I wonder why I was selling more lettuce sales the last few weeks. Well, it's because we're going through it like no one had ever had a taco salad before. And it's like, oh my God, from heaven. But it was. But you got suppliers that are constantly willing to step up. And when we needed extra loads, Nancy Johnson, she'll tell you, Rich, they were delivering product to our stores. We couldn't keep product in their stores. You got to have that kind of relationship. Customers and suppliers, it can't be combative. It's got to be, there's got to be a vested interest on both sides.
It's starting to sound like all of your partners are angels, moving heaven and earth to
I'm
make
the
you
one that doesn't
successful.
qualify.
So, Robin, do you have an example of a successful promotion that involved the produce industry?
I would say back in September, marketing decided that they wanted to do our platform of sushi and wanted to give away free sushi, a roll of sushi. For anybody that came in, you didn't have to order anything. You could come in and have a glass of water and a free sushi roll. Well, we decided to do that, and then there was a problem in Mexico with avocados. So we were projecting an unbelievable amount of product. A couple of people helped out, Mr. Bachman and Chris Cahoon. So it was really great. I really cannot believe we pulled it off, and they were very collaborative, and maybe somebody else didn't get avocados that day, I'm not quite sure, but we were up 70% of traffic for the day, and our return customers have been about 35%. So it was a great promotion, and without the help of Rich and Chris in Florida, we wouldn't have pulled it off. It would have been a pretty bad day.
Steve.
Okay, so I wanted to give you an example of a different promotion. So we do the same thing, we work with national accounts, and again, if you haven't understood, we're focused on burgers, right? That's why I'm wearing my Blenditarian. Because it's a blended burger, so I'm wearing my Blenditarian t-shirt. But that's where, that is our focus. And, we really don't have a brand, or in that case, we don't really even have a product. So, as I said before, we're interested in that great burger experience, and we're interested in culinary craft and sustainability. So, for us, one of the most successful promotions that we had is we've teamed up with, if you think about culinary craft and sustainability, you might not think about sustainability with them, but we've hooked up with James Beard Foundation for the last couple years. And in fact, they came to us, and we've created the Blended Burger Project. And over the last 2 years, there have been almost 700 operators around the country, some of whom have been chains. Some have been regional chains, not large chains, but regional chains, and then some Top Chefs, Iron Chefs, food trucks, hotels, all kinds of different operators across the segment or Spectrum rather, that have put mushroom blended burgers on their menu, and they're still there today. Sometimes you won't even know that you see those. But James Beard, which is all about, all about the best in culinary, and now they're into impact programs and about sustainability and improving the food systems in this country, or protecting rather the food systems in this country, are big advocates of that. So if you go look at blendedburgerproject.com, you'll see James Beard, you'll see what they're doing around this. So that to us has been extremely successful, because we've been able to get out and reach millions and millions of consumers, which is the same way you would do with chains, but we've done it with with some pretty high-profile chefs.
So I'm going to ask all the panelists to respond to the next question, and then head out to the audience for your questions in our last 15 minutes or so. So starting with Steve, what's going to kill a partnership, and what's going to make a partnership be successful? Just in a few words. What's going to kill it, and what's going to guarantee success?
Communication.
So poor communication kills it, good communication, success. Rich?
Yeah, I mean, just, agendas. We have folks out there that have their own agenda, and they care more about that than the overall success. So everybody can't win all the time. There needs to be compromise. It's not going to be perfect for everybody. So I would say that, we all have to understand that and work together to try to find win-wins.
Have you ever thought about like a daytime talk show or a serious channel where you're doing like relationship consulting for the industry?
I'm not sure.
Dr. Rich, like?
Yeah, Dr. Rich, today at 3.
A couple more years, I see.
All right, you heard it here, a couple more years. Dr. Rich on Sirius. Robin?
I would say communication and is the most important thing, because if you're in a vacuum, or you just do sometimes you get in a silo, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you don't have that. So I think the communication is the most important piece of my job.
I think it's patience. This is a long process. Steve was talking the other day about a chain in Canada where they had been coming to see him constantly, every year, wanting this and that. Finally, he says, I can't do it again. And guess what? That was the time when something actually happened. And some of these things take years. And I think it's that patience. I think it's the interest. I think it's the, kind of just trying to drive towards greater consumption or relentlessness. If people weren't relentless, we wouldn't have half the stuff we have today.
Joe?
I openly communicate with everybody that first of all, we all have non-disclosure agreements, so we can pretty much openly talk to each other when we're discussing what we're doing. So they understand where our mindset is, what we're looking at, all the way through to, from the dirt on up, all the way through. And for me, I think that's the only way it really works, because if I need Rich to find something for me that Steve can't grow, I want him to know everything about it and why we're searching for it, and I need his expertise to help me to complete it. And I think so being transparent is extremely beneficial. The days are of not trusting and we got to do it this way, or those days are gone. You want to be successful, you want to deliver the best product, do your customer. I've got 6,500 customers. I got to make sure they have product. If I think I'm going to play a head game with Bachman, man, they're in trouble. So you got to be on the same page. So I think transparency for me is vitally important.
I would say alignment of goals and objectives all the way through, and then commitment to the success.
I like that. So besides parroting what Peggy said, no, I think one of the key, and remember the context that we're talking about is demand and promotion, but I think it's keeping an eye on the consumer. I think that ultimately, if we don't know, what the Wendy's consumer, we'll never know what their consumer looks like better than they do. but we can find out. And so, you know, and we know what, you know, what those type of people or the demographic of those people, what they're looking for, you know. And so I think keeping your eye on the consumer, and I think that's exactly why, you know, again, back to burgers, that's why colleges and universities which cared about sustainability, and Raffi was really the, you know, the first to, you know, to sort of put this on his menu. But, you know, that's why colleges and universities, 250, 300 colleges and universities that are doing this right now. It's also the reason, if I can say, Seasons 52 is finally selling a beef burger, which they've never been able to sell before. So you have to, and we know that their customers, you know, after either talking to them or talking to their consumers, they wanted a burger. But, you know, I mean, everybody knows the Seasons 52 concept, which may one day change, but, you know, what is it, 475 calories for each item? Well, they could serve bison burgers and turkey burgers and chicken burgers and salmon burgers. They could never serve a beef burger until now. And so it's the #1 selling, right now, a mushroom blended burger is the #1 selling item on their lunch menu, because their consumer wanted it, so.
All right, so to summarize, the things that are going to guarantee, not guarantee, but increase the likelihood of a very successful partnership: strong communication, commitment to communication, patience, transparency, trust, being consumer focused, and being aligned on your shared goals or on your individual goals, so that there can be win-win and a little compromise as needed. So, okay, let's turn it out to the audience now for questions for our panelists. We've got one back here. Students, get ready to ask questions. This is your opportunity to pick the brains of industry leaders.
Hello. Okay. My name is Kristen. I work for Village Farms. And Joe, I have to tell you, I can relate to that story. My background is in finance and accounting, and I, a year ago, joined the produce world, and I too am having more fun. So my question is in regards to education. A lot of this discussion was on educating from a grower, educating the sales force at a distributor, in turn to the chef, and then trickling down to the end user. What information can the grower provide that will be meaningful to the end user? Do they need to know about sustainability, the technology behind it, or is it limited to the flavor of the product? How can we as growers do the best job in educating your sales team and in turn the consumer?
You know, I think from the grower standpoint, we sometimes go out and bring a lot of product to the end user or the distributor, or they will come to us, and just educating what is available. Now, most of our items are not really flavorful. You know, iceberg lettuce, we need dressing, romaine, Caesar salad type. So, you know, when it comes to flavor, when I talked about color, we thought that the red spinach would provide something, a wow factor. So we're always trying to innovate on new items. We even had one time a wasabi arugula that we thought would be really good, but you know, a mouthful of wasabi arugula, man, it would knock you out. But you know, just you know, bringing them to the fields too, and I think whoever said about really understanding what we go through. But you know, again, we do grow strawberries. We don't market it, but you know, the strawberries are a hot item with the flavor and the color, and so I think flavor and color is great, but they're not predominant in our items.
I would just add that I've been calling on restaurant chefs for 40 years, and there's been times I just wanted to choke them because they're complaining about a product, and I want to look at them in the face and say, do you realize it's an absolute miracle that that product is on your plate? And you don't realize it until you've gone through the process. So this person's in Boston, and they bought a product in California, and this product was planted, cared for, harvested, watered, picked, you know, cooled, put in a facility, somehow got it in the box in decent shape, because God is our manufacturer. We have no idea what's going to happen to the ingredients until the weather is right. And then then you got to have somebody that isn't an expert in warehouse people pull product, make sure it gets on the right truck, gets across the country, gets in another cooler. Maybe it gets put away right, maybe it doesn't, maybe it sits in there for the right amount of time. Then you got somebody else that's pulling it out, putting it on another warehouse, and then getting it on a truck and getting it to them. So I think it's touched like 13 times, which is 13 times it could get screwed up. And then there's one bad leave and the guy's yelling at me about it or throwing a head of romaine over my head or something like that. And I just want to make them understand that I believe if they really understood what you did as a grower and what you did as a grower and everything that you truly go for, I think they'd be an easier customer. So the more you can just educate your customers on the growing process and the miraculous things that you do to get product to them, I think that they're going to be a better customer.
Rich, question. I mean, in the case of Village Farms, you guys are coming up with some really cool new varieties of tomatoes. You've got some wonderful packaging and you're going after snacks and things like that. Would an approach for a Village Farms in that situation when they're coming up with new stuff and they're trying to communicate through your team, is it this product or this is how this product can improve your Sysco's customers' performance for their customer? Is that something that more than just the blocking and tackling of hothouse tomatoes? I mean, how does this product improve Joe's offer to his customer?
Well, I mean, I think we talked about it earlier. Unlike just like the mushrooms and the mushroom burger and so forth, I think everyone's looking for something to present to their customers. And I'll even, Steve from Aramark is in the audience along with Matthew, and a lot of times they're great at trying to have new items. We're not afraid to give you customers. We're not afraid to say, you know what, go talk to them. That's a great idea. You know all about it. Go talk to some major, go talk to Joe, go talk to Robin. We'll help you with that. If it fits, that's fine. I mean, connect you with the customer. There's nothing wrong with that as long as everybody's on the same page.
I have actually two questions. My first question is that for years I've been in this industry, I've always heard the feedback, similar to Rich's feedback, that the more information, more education is extremely helpful for all parties. And the more operators actually would learn about supply chain management and have developed a strategic relationship, like Peg was saying, that it's better. But who owns that though? Who in the industry owns this process? And why is it not done? I mean, which segment of the industry? Is it the operators that they have to self-educate themselves, or the distributors that they're going to be representing the growers and everybody, the operators? Who ultimately owns this? Education or informing customers. And number two question that I have is, has nothing to do with the first question, is that the fact that for many years we've been trying to address this issue of the food waste. I know at the operator level, we constantly try to reduce the food waste, because to us means putting money back in our own pocket, okay? But now we know that the industry at large has a 45 to 50% pre- and post-consumer waste that everybody's talking about, but nobody actually know what the real number is. Everybody talks about a huge amount of agricultural food waste that is happening. What is being done about that? What sort of relationship needs to be built in the industry in order to address the issue of the food waste?
Well, I would take the food waste piece of it. We used to take a head of lettuce, an iceberg lettuce, and we'd use maybe 10 leaves out of it, and the rest of it was supposed to go into a mix. It didn't go into a mix. It ended up going into the waste. So it was unbelievable. So what we did is our team got together with supply chain, quality assurance, and culinary, and we came up with cutting into a third versus in a half, and we reduced our use and our waste by almost 200. We went from 500,000 cases of iceberg down to, I think, 300. So just by looking at what you're using, you can reduce the waste of some sort without going to a new product, just a new process.
And we're involved in a program with the Compass Group as far as imperfect produce. And there's like 7 SKUs that we developed. And actually one of the best SKUs that we developed was broccoli bits. As a matter of fact, it's so good that people want that as a main product now, and we just can't get enough of it. But it's reducing waste. We also have, well, we're doing a second and third cutting like a spinach that would normally be disked under, and even broccoli leaves that we were picking up and sending it into a box, or even we have one customer that they're juicing it. So those are types of things. I would tell you right now there's not huge demand for it, but there is some demand. And you know, I always tell the story, I've worked all my life trying to produce the best possible product I can, and now, you know, somebody says, well, I want ugly produce. So, you know, it's something that needs to be done. You know, we're doing it, and it wasn't our idea, but we took it on, and it is working.
How do you get it into the distribution?
It's through a program, and there's certain distributors that are aligned with the Compass Group, and so each one orders individually per their divisions, and so it's you know, it's all over the country.
If you want it, they'll get it to you. Customers always get what they want.
As far as you had asked about the educational process and how it works, this organization, Jim, and as do other associations, have really worked hard lately at student programs, emerging leader programs. There's a whole bunch of that going on all over the place, trying to teach young agricultural people the cycle and the process, and we've all, as veterans, been involved in that. Everybody up here has mentored kids and everything like that. And there's in my mind, and everybody might not agree to this, but there's a natural progression of hierarchy. So it goes grower, distributor, operator. If you're big enough like Joe, he skips me, which is fine because he's so big that he can go directly to the grower, and then I come in later. But the natural progression is, if you're an operator, then you go to your distributor first and say, I want to tour your facility. I want to come in at night. I want to see how you pick product. I want to understand what your operation is about, and then I want you to help me get connected to who you buy from. And I want to be educated in that process. I think, to me, that's the most natural progression, along with some of the young student programs of how to get educated if you're interested in our industry.
As far as educating within the chain itself, our chain, we take that on ourselves as part of our responsibility, in association with the grower and the distributor as well, and we feed off of each other. We also work within not only our R&D and our marketing departments, but our operations department, because it's got to work through them first. The concept may sound great on paper, but if the operations people can't do it, we can't we're wasting our time. So it's all the way through. It's got to be a collaboration.
All right, we have time for one more question from the audience.
Not so much a question, but an observation. I spent 18 years in distribution, and we're talking about knowledge and education. Our business is still substantively managed by about 20,000 DSRs that have a direct contact in the order processing piece. Produce is the only commodity that most of our customers, when they're paying the most amount of money for it, are getting the least quality product. They don't understand from an operator perspective what's causing that, and it's critical from a education perspective to train those 20,000 sales reps that turn over at a rate of almost 20 to 25% a year. So there's about 5,000 DSR openings each year currently, and you have to have a constant foot on the pedal of education to make sure those people that are charged to manage our business understand what the operator's business is. So it's constant. It's not a national account per se, because 50% of our business is independent operators. So as manufacturers, distributors, you have to get completely aligned to make sure you're talking to them directly, giving them good usable information. Less about the growing, how the operator's going to use it, and what's affecting the quality when he gets there. But it's a daunting task. It's just huge.
Can I make a comment before we get done?
Absolutely.
So last fall, last year we were all anticipating El Nino taking California out of their drought, but around September, Yuma got flooded out completely, which at the time nobody really thought a whole lot of until December when the lettuce market hits $50. We told our people in September, we're going to have problems. This is going to affect industry-wide, and we are going to be begging for everything we can get. It's going to affect iceberg, romaine, all that. 3 months in advance, we were warning people in writing, telling them, we got to change our blend. We got to get less iceberg, more romaine. We got to split it up because we were afraid of supplies. On this show floor, I was buying truckloads out of contract, open market from him to maintain supply. My people finally figured it out that this is a real deal and we're going to have a problem. And it lasted, what, 8 weeks?
Yeah. And by the way, thank you.
You're welcome. made up for the red leaf spinach. So, we communicate and communicate and communicate. We had all this advance warning, but you can only do so much with it. But we try to be as proactive as possible. And you're right. What happened last week, you cannot relate to somebody to go out on the street and tell them this is what's going to happen. I mean, I'm watching winter storms, I become more of a weatherman sometimes. That's what you got to do.
All right, let's have a big round of applause for our panel.